Stormtroopers are closing in and I'm taking heavy fire. I quickly activate my personal shield and sprint back to relative safety. The forest moon of Endor has dense vegetation, which often makes it difficult to distinguish enemies from the surroundings. I find a cluster of bushes that should make me virtually invisible. I dive into my perceived safe spot to regenerate health, but it isn't long before blaster fire from halfway across the map takes me out. But how did they know I was there? The situation from Star Wars Battlefront tells us that the player has specific expectations about how they can interact with the world around them. To fully understand what happened here, let's start with the basics. The term affordance has been popularized by the field of interaction design, where it's defined as: an affordance is a relationship between the properties of an object and the capabilities of the agent that determine just how the object could possibly be used. What we're mostly concerned with for purposes of game and level design are perceived affordances. Simply put, how you think you can interact with an object simply by looking at it. Let's take a mug or cup for example. The handle is conveniently hand or finger shaped and gives the perceived affordance that it can be grabbed. The solid outside and hollow inside affords it being filled with small items or liquid. The size and perceived material of the object also affords it being light enough to be thrown and will likely shatter on impact. A signifier is an indicator of some sort that communicates behavior of an object or how it should be used. For example, heat-sensitive mugs have the added signifier that indicates when there's hot liquid inside the mug. With doors, a horizontal bar matches the breadth of your body and the height is at a level where you can just stick your hands out in front of you and they naturally rest on it. Once you've done that, the only natural thing to do is to keep the forward momentum and push it. Whereas with a vertical bar, the way you grab it affords you to pull it towards you rather than push out, though they could go either way. When these affordances or their signifiers in the form of push-pull signs are misplaced, this tends to cause confusion in how to open the door.
It won't open because it's a security door!
What the fuck are you two doing?
When designing your games and levels, signifiers and affordances also play a key role. Cracks in the walls in the Legend of Zelda series give the affordance that a wall section is weakened and fragile, indicating to the player that it can be blown up. When a gap between walls or two objects in the scene looks as large or larger than the player character, it affords for the player to pass through it. When this isn't possible, this is a frustrating experience for the player. You'd either want to move them further apart to allow the player to pass through, or place clear visual blockers to remove the affordance. In many games, the color yellow is used as a signifier to indicate that a part of the environment can be climbed, or is in some other way interactable. The tallnecks in Horizon Zero Dawn are a very interesting example. They are walking creatures, but mostly function as a part of the game's level design. The bars on their neck stick out and have the perceived affordance for the player to grab onto and climb. Again here, you can see the color yellow used as a signifier for elements in the level that can be climbed. Additionally, tall necks function as an important landmark in the game. If you want to find out more about landmarks, you can check out my other video on this topic. Where a perceived affordance lets the player know how they can interact with something, an anti-affordance specifically communicates something that you cannot do. For example, the spinning fan in Jedi Fallen Order clearly does not afford being touched or climbed, at least while it's spinning. In games where there's vaulting or climbing, you often want to communicate to the player that certain map edges or regions are not reachable and some walls can be climbed. Barbed wire has a clear anti-affordance of being touched or climbed and is commonly used for this purpose. Going back to the Star Wars example at the start of the video, the problem here is that the bushes give the perceived affordance of hiding the player and cutting off line of sight. When playing against other people, they do have this functionality. Against the AI though, the non-solid vegetation isn't factored into their line of sight calculation, so the affordance of being able to hide in the bushes actually turns out to be a false affordance. Generally, when affordances and signifiers are applied correctly in your level design, the player should hardly notice them. Of course they could open that door and jump over that gap in the floor. Of course they could slide down that zip line and surprise their enemies. It's when players continuously feel they should be able to do something but can't, or when they keep missing what you thought were obvious actions to progress, it's the hallmark of poor affordance design. So keep in mind the perceived affordances of all objects and interactables in your levels, and if nothing else, be consistent. If you enjoy these level design videos, you might want to check out the others on my channel, drop me a like or even subscribe to show some support and stay up to date with future videos. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video.